So another effective practice to help you disidentify with the mind is taking away the story, removing the story. You'll notice that any good emotions, bad emotions, someone has wronged you, someone has hurt you, someone has all these type of things, what you're trying to achieve in life, you get to your goals or whatever it is, you'll notice that there's this story. And it's the story that really, it's like it supports and preserves the me, the ego, right? The separate self. Because when you pull away that story, it's like you're pulling away the support system, right? Things aren't nearly as overwhelming, right? There's an experience of emotions. There's an experience of emotions. But when there's a story that goes along with those emotions, there's like, he did this to me, she did this to me, can't do this now because I got to get somewhere else. So, I wanted this to change, something in the past, right? Something in the future. It's never about here and now, because when you're here and now, fully present, there is no story. The story is always this past and this future. So it's seeing that when you're getting into that story, when you're creating that story, which is always this kind of, progression, right? Past to future, right? It just feels very linear, this story. That things get very overwhelming, get very immersed into the story. The same way that you get immersed into a movie, right? It's the story. That's what a movie is. It's a story, right? And you get so immersed in it. And sometimes, if the movie's really good, it's like you lose yourself in the movie. You're so identified with the main character. It's so you start crying, you start feeling all that, right? You get really into it. You believe yourself to be like that character when it's very immersive, right? And that whole story supports that character. Without the story, then there can't be that character. It supports it. It supports it. Where then you're seeing the linear progression of this character through the movie. And we do the same thing. Right? That's the activity of the mind. It's just creating the story. It's creating the sense of character. So seeing it and not giving it that power, because what we do is we're like creating the story. We're creating the story, which is just more thoughts. And you see this. We create, we start having anxiety and worry and fear. It's like we're writing a story with a horrible ending. Right? We're just kind of writing the next chapter. Here's the now, right? Okay. Lost a client. Shoot, that was $2,000 a month that we were having come into the business. Lost the client. Now catch the part where you start writing the story. Oh, now I'm going to not be able to afford the payment that I need to make next week, or I'm not going to be able to afford the car that I was saving up for. Or now I need, what if I don't get another client to replace that client that just left us? Now I won't be able to pay for the rent of the office, right? won't be able to get that engagement ring on time. Right? It's just all this what ifs and coulds and could not and maybe, and right? But you're writing it. And it's always the story is always, who's the main character? It's the me. Right? And we do that. We're doing that all the time. This person hurt me, right? There's someone that hurt me, then all of a sudden the character that you play in that story is a victim, or someone's always hurting you. You hurt me. Say sorry for hurting me, right? You always you play the judge, right? What's right and wrong? They did you wrong. They have to apologize. Someone's hurt. That's me, the main character, playing a victim. I'm hurt. Someone else has offended me, right? But we're creating it. We're creating it all the time. So once you start seeing how you're creating that story, right? You just stop creating it. And you start noticing that immediately it's like you're sucking the juice out of it. It's like it doesn't have the same grip. It doesn't have the same immersiveness. Like, just imagine, just like a movie, right? The good movies, you're really immersed in. You lose yourself and you're like identifying as the character because they're really good movies. It's a good story, right? It's a good story. Maybe not good story in the sense of like a good story with a happy ending. Some of these movies, that was a good horror movie. Yeah, would you like that to be your life though? You're like, no way, absolutely not, right? It was a good suspense thriller. Would you like that to be your life? It's like, no way, right? So, but imagine you just kind of pulling the story apart. Imagine that story not being that good because you're starting to see through that story a little bit. And you're kind of like, okay. And you just stop creating the story. It loses that immersion. You're then no longer drawn into it as much. Right? You're no longer drawn into it. So it's to see that when you're creating that story, creating the future, creating some alternate past, right? The past, even though it's not possible, the past has already happened, right? The past is dead and the future is unborn. But somehow we're like writing a story of how things could be different. Like you can dig up the dead, right? You can change the past, right? We're always creating some story about the future. It's just all dream and imagination, right? It's like predictions. That's what the story is. It's just like a prediction. So when you stop doing that, then you find yourself more present. And there's that story that just doesn't have, it's like you don't want to go back to it because you see that it's causing a lot of stress. It's causing a lot of unhappiness. So it's kind of like you put the pen down. When you put the pen down, then you find that there's not nearly that strong identification with the mind. You don't see it as like a place to just kill time. Oh, here I am. I'm just living life. But you know what? Let me just kill some time and create a whole big story in my mind. You don't do that anymore. You see that's how most people are living. They're playing with their mind too much, and they're getting hurt. They're getting hurt. It's like they don't know how it works. They're getting hurt. You don't know how a tool works, and you just start pressing buttons, and you're bleeding. Your hands are getting cut. Right? It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. So instead of just creating that story, writing the story, where you're the character that then suffers from your own story, then you start seeing more clearly, and you stop doing that, which is very empowering, because you're taking back your power from that story. And then the story doesn't have the same power. And when the story doesn't have that same power, you don't go getting lost in the story. So hopefully that helps you. I'll see you in the next one.